Hey guys, ABG Ford here, and in today's video I'm going to be giving an in-depth guide in aiming. Now before I go into the video, I would like to shout out my friend Slythy. He's helped me out a lot with this video and I highly recommend you guys go follow him on his socials, which are linked in the description. So I don't want to bore your guys' time, so I'm just going to start off with the video. But I want to say really quick that me and Slythy offer aim coaching for Fortnite, and if you're interested, just follow me on Twitter and DM me. The first things I'm going to talk about are common misconceptions in aiming. The first misconception is that aim is muscle memory. This is not true at all. If you are a top tier aimer, you'll be a top tier aimer on whatever mouse, sensitivity, mousepad you'll be on. A good aimer has good aim on everything, and a perfect example of this is VF Serious. He's one of the best aimers in the world, and he changes his mouse all the time and his sensitivity all the time, but his aim is still top tier and elite. The second thing is going to be misconceptions on the internet and why you shouldn't trust certain opinions. Make sure people giving out advice about aim know what they're saying. People like Kovaak and Itsjerian are bad sources. Now Itsjerian's a really cool dude, but he doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to aiming. Kovaak does not provide good information or coaching as well. Aimer7 and Croter give the best information, and any VF member for that sake. They give the best information and they have the best knowledge of aiming in the community and when it comes to Fortnite. So no one is better than the VF members, especially Aimer7 and Croter. They're both amazing and they know lots about aiming. What separates Aimer7 and Croter from Kovaak is not just knowledge. We have facts that Aimer7 and Croter are both elite aimers and some of the best in the world at what they do. And that's why they're such good coaches and such good knowledgeable aimers. But we've never seen anything from Kovaak about aiming. I've never seen him anywhere high up in anything. I've never seen any proof of him even knowing how aiming works. Itsjerian also gives bad information when it comes to aiming, but it's hard to blame him as he researches on the internet and a lot of things on the internet also provide bad information, so there's nothing he can really do about that. I also highly do not recommend Sparky Aim / Voltaic. They do not hand out good information either unless you want to take tips from Sparky Grandmaster Timmy69 on 80 centimeters per 360. Basically, their system is just benchmarking your aim on Kovaak scenarios, and that's really not a good thing because Kovaak scenarios don't always have the greatest scoring systems, and in general, like, you could cheese scenarios with FOVs, sensitivities, and everything like that, and it's not a good benchmark if your aim actually improving, and people generally don't really know what they're talking about in there. The best place to look for top tier guides are, of course, this video, as well as all of Aimer7's public Kovaak guides, which are all really good and great, and I highly recommend looking at them, and I'll try to remember to link them in the description, because they're all great. The third misconception is that people think that aim is easy to improve. Aim is not easy to improve. It is hard, and especially for Fortnite, since you are combining with aiming with your edits and all that, so it's a lot harder in Fortnite than it is in all other games. There are so many aspects to get good at. There's reading skills, there's tracking, there's reactivity, etc. And you all need to put them into one and train them in one thing. Your aim will not become a pro level overnight as well, so if you start playing Kovaak right now, you're not going to become really good within a week. You must put in lots of time for it. Now you will see improvements within a week, but 6 months later down the road, your aim will get a lot better and be very much better. You have to put in time to it. So now I'm going to talk about how to get started. Choosing a good mouse and mousepad is a very important thing. You want a good mouse that suits your grip and playstyle. Make sure your mouse is not too light. Anything under 70 grams I wouldn't recommend, and 60 grams is the absolute bottom I would say you should go. Now, if you don't understand what your grip is, there is a diagram on the screen that's a rough basis. It's not the perfect diagram, but it's pretty good. Claw grippers should use mice with humps at the back. The best ones are the XM1 and the G Pro Hero / G203, aka the egg shapes. Personally, I think the G203 is the best claw grip mouse by far for aiming, and I highly recommend it for anyone using claw grip. Now, for those who are a palm claw hybrid, the G Pro Wireless and the Viper Ultimate are the two best mice for you, and I don't really see any other mice being as good as those two. For palm grippers, you should use mice with middle humps. The best mice for that are the G Pro Wireless again, the Viper Ultimate again, and from my experience, the G403 and even the G402 could work very well if your hands are larger. For fingertip grippers, I highly recommend the Viper Mini, but if you're able to comfortably fingertip the Viper Ultimate, it could also work really well for you. Now, one thing is very important to note is that these mice I listed for each grip are not the only options, and everybody has their preferences, but these mice are generally the best for each category at the top of my head. There are other options out there that might work better for you and for each person, but just make sure to do your research before buying it. For mouse pads, it's better to use cloth pads, as they generally allow for more cleaner and controlled movements at a faster speed. Almost all cloth pads are heavily affected by environmental factors though, such as humidity and temperature, and because of this you want to avoid pads that are heavily affected by humidity and temperature, such as the GSRSE and the Glorious pads, who have a really big problem with that. The X-Ray Pad Minerva is a GSRSE clone that's affected less by humidity, and the Aqua Control Plus, Equate Plus, etc. are all great pads also. I think the best mouse pad is the Inks Gaming Mousepad and the Artisan Zero 2, but the Inks Gaming Mousepad is a lot cheaper and it's more available, but both are great. A thing to note is that some mousepads can have a very good glide, but very bad durability. The G640 is one of these mousepads. It has a good glide, but it barely lasts you past 3 months. And the GSRC mousepads will last you around 6 months minimum and like 8 months maximum from my experience. So I don't recommend getting a mousepad with bad durability unless you're willing to buy a new one after they wear out. Again, these are all recommendations believed to be the best by me and Slythy, but as always, newer products could have come out since the making of this video, and you should always do your research before choosing your peripherals, and there could be better options that work out best for you. If you have any peripheral questions, you can always DM me or Slythy on Twitter and ask. The links will be in the description, and we will do our best to answer them all. When it comes to refresh rate, 144 Hz is probably the lowest refresh rate you should go if you want to have very good aim. It can be possible with an extremely low latency 60Hz monitor, but I don't really recommend that. I think 144 is the lowest you should go. Obviously 240Hz, even the 280 and 360Hz monitors are very good, and you should try to get the highest you can, but 144Hz should be fine. When it comes to sensitivities, you want to choose a good sensitivity for your grip. For this section, I will be talking in Fortnite sensitivity itself rather than centimeters per 360, so those unfamiliar with the concept of centimeters, which I have met a lot of people that are actually unfamiliar with that, can understand better. Claw grippers should use higher sensitivities. A good range is 8 to 10% on 800 dpi. I don't like being between 7 to 8% just because you're more inclined to use your arm rather than your wrist, and when using your wrist you're a lot more precise when it comes to aiming. Palm grip and fingertip grip users should use lower sensitivities. A good range for this is 6 to 7% on 800 dpi, or whatever is equal to that in your respective dpi. If you really want, you can go up to 7.5% on palm, but I would stick to 7% as the highest. The reason behind these choices are claw grip has the best compromise between stability and adjusting room, and any sense is easier to control and more precise on claw grip, but a higher one is a much higher skill ceiling, and the grip allows for that. Palm grip needs a lower sensitivity because there is a lack of adjustment room for the fingers, and you need more freedom to do those adjustments with your wrist instead. While fingertip grip, on the other hand, needs a lower sensitivity to compensate for the lack of palm stability. For ADS sensitivities, if you zoom in a lot at close range, playing a higher ADS is beneficial here, and 70% is very good for that. Even if you don't zoom in a lot at close range, 70% is also a pretty good one to have. And if you want to beam people really hard and you want to go lower, then 50% is probably the lowest you should go, because vertical tracking and wider angle shots will suffer if you go under 50. If you are very skilled, you can go lower than 50, maybe to 40 or 30%. But I still recommend 50% is the lowest you should go just because of the vertical tracking and wider shots. So when it comes to training, you want to train what you're bad at, and you want to train something that matches your skill level. What makes good practice is using kovaaks effectively, playing good scenarios, playing the scenarios correctly for most improvements while not developing bad habits at the same time, and you also have to complement Kovaak with real game scenarios. For those unfamiliar with Kovaak, it's an FPS aim tuner that has player-made scenarios that you can play and most likely use to improve your aim. Now, you want to use complete routines with each scenario that complements each other and works on all aspects of your aim at the same time. If you don't do that, it will be a lot harder for your aim to improve, and a very good way to do this is to hire an aim coach. Me and Slythy offer our own aim coaching if you're interested in that, but Aimer7 and Croder are probably the two best aim coaches on the market, and they're extremely good at what they do. Also, things that are free, Aimer7 has more guides that you can read. All the guides that I've shown so far are there, and you can find some more about movement, strafe aiming, etc. I highly recommend you go through all of Aimer7's guides. It's a lot of just free information out there you can just look at and learn things from, and it's still very good to this day. Make sure you play Kovaak before you play Fortnite. You don't want to play it after. And try to spend 1 to 2 hours aim training with your routine, and then you can hop on and play Fortnite. You have to play Kovaak every single day. In even high skill levels, it's not a good idea to stop training your aim, since you'll lose your skill with time. When it comes to specific weapons, shotguns, you mostly need to utilize your flicking skill, your precision, reactivity, corrections, reading skills, etc. And with SMG, you also need to work on your precision, reactivity, corrections, and reading skills as well. With the AR, you also need to have reactivity and reading skills, but most importantly, you want to have smoothness and precision. You can also play click timing scenarios in Kovaak with your ADS sensitivity to work on your first shot accuracy, which is something very good to do. So now I'm going to talk about all the different aiming issues that people have. The first issue that people have is the lack of speed. It's common for low sense players to not have good speed, and there are many good ways to work on it. Aimer7 also has 2 really good speed training guides that are on his Twitter, and they're very great to improve your raw arm power and your speed for building and editing. But it also just makes you faster in general, and I highly recommend it. The second issue that I'm going to talk about is smoothness. A lot of players lack smoothness and are generally shaky and jittery. A really good way to work on this is to play Kovaak scenarios at 80 FOV with your sensitivity a little bit higher. What this does is that it makes it a lot harder to be more precise, and it forces you to smooth out your wrist a little bit more. And also, there are very good scenarios that are dedicated to being smooth. One good scenario is TAM target switch smooth, which if you take your crosshair off the target, then some of the HP will actually generate back to it. So you have to keep it on the target the whole time to eliminate it. It's a very good thing for smoothness and precision in general. One thing to do is Aimer7 smoothness training. Again, Aimer7 has all the best guides out there that you can use. And I will show that on the screen like I did before. Another thing we'll talk about is large angles. Large angles are aiming at the extreme parts of your mouse pad. The farther you are from your rest position, the larger angle you have. And this is a huge thing in Fortnite, especially because of the building and editing mechanics. And generally within Kovaak routines from aim coaches that you get, you'll get some very good improvement for large angles depending on what you buy. You also need to make sure not to sleep on large angles, as they are extremely important and happen a lot in Fortnite, especially because of the building and editing aspect of the game. So how to judge improvement? You can use Kovaak scores for this, but it's not the best way because a lot of scores have misleading scoring systems that can lead to you playing for accuracy or not playing the scenario in the best way possible to improve, and it might be a little bit misleading and create bad habits for you. So a better way to do this is how you feel in game with your mouse movements and finding yourself hitting shots that you wouldn't hit before when you began training. You also need to have the right mentality for aiming. Aim training takes a lot of work, and your aim will not become mongrel's aim overnight, so don't let yourself become demotivated and make sure to focus on your improvement. The last thing I'm going to talk about is aim duels. Aim duels are extremely crucial to your aim. You should be playing them for 15 to 30 minutes each day, even if you do play Kovaaks, because they just help us so much with your third-person intuition and your dodging skills, and even your reading skills. You also want to get a lot of in-game fighting with shotguns and SMGs and ARs, etc. So play a lot of zone wars and PGs and arena, etc. Just basically play the game. Because if you're playing Kovaaks and you're not transferring your training on Kovaaks to the actual game itself, then what are you really doing? So that's all me and Slythy thought of for this video. We tried to condense everything into around 15 minutes long, so it's not too long, so you can just consume everything in it without getting too tired out or bored. So we tried to make it as short as possible, and obviously we can't fit every single thing about aiming into just a 15-minute video. So if you have any questions, you can DM us on Twitter, on twitter.com/apg40 or twitter.com/slythyaims. You can DM us if you have any questions, or you can just drop it in the comment section down below. I would also really appreciate it if you like this video and even consider subscribing to the channel if you're not. A lot of you guys that watch my videos are not subscribed, and you're just missing out. For those of you that made it that far, make sure to just comment aim guide down below so I can see who the real ones are that made it this far. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your days, or if you're going to bed, I hope you sleep well.